Close your eyes and imagine the backdrop for the fairy tales you loved as a child. Now open them. If you're standing on the shores of Lake Bled, Slovenia, seeing the church-topped island and the castle-topped cliff, then you're already there. Is this the most beautiful place on Earth? I certainly think so, and I'm not alone. Millions of visitors have marveled at the fairy tale perfection of Bled, Slovenia. This podcast brings you the wonders of Bled, its people, places, foods, history, and experiences. Everything you need for a perfect holiday. I'm your host, Noah Charney, and this is the Bled Podcast. Is this the most beautiful place on Earth? Let's begin. Lake Bled has hosted the World Rowing Championships on 4 occasions. Visitors will inevitably notice the lanes that stretch across the lake, and might even be lucky enough to see a crew team training here. I can't imagine a more beautiful spot to train and compete. To learn more for this episode, I spoke to a former rower and gold medalist who trained here daily, Luka Spik. Lake Bled hosted the World Rowing Championships in 1966, 79, 89, and 2011. I can tell this from eating at Spica, the restaurant by the lake that features photos and memorabilia, most evidently of Luka Spik, one-time rower and gold medalist in the double sculls event in 2000 at the Sydney Olympics, with his rowing partner Istok Chop. When I learned of their success, my first reaction was to think that their surnames sounded like violent verbs, Spik and Chop. Yes, I know I'm weird. I also foolishly assumed that Luka owned the restaurant too. Even a foreigner can spot that Spik and Spica sound close enough. The former can slangily mean a little poke, as in with a needle, and the latter can mean an outcropping of terrain, or the part of something that pokes, all of which sounds oddly naughty as I say it, so I should probably delete this before we go live. Well, it turns out that Luka is a fan of the restaurant, but it's owned by another rowing legend, Jani Klemencic. But everyone seems to think it's Luka's, and whether it is or not, I like to eat there, and they provide crayons and coloring pages for my daughters, so I'm all in. That restaurant is decorated with rowing memorabilia. You can play Spot Spik at Spica, as I did with my daughters there once, including medals and vintage posters of rowing events. In our episode featuring the anecdotes of Janez Fajfar, we learned of how Lake Bled was, while no one was looking, extended slightly to accommodate the full length of the racing lanes required for international competition. Even today, this is where the Slovenian rowing team trains, and foreign teams line up for a chance to row here. You can keep your Thames or Charles River rowing venues. There can be no more picturesque place to row than here. I'm ever in search of a protagonist, a lens through which to explore a world, however small and specific, like rowing at Lake Bled. They are the sources of my information, and their personalities help to tell the story in a more engaging way than a list of facts and dates. For rowing, I turn to Luka. Luka lives in London now, but he kindly offered to speak with me about rowing at Lake Bled. Luka, thank you so much for taking some time to speak with me. So what I'd like to begin with is the impression of the general public within the rowing community about Bled. Does it have a reputation? Is it a place that's known by rowers abroad?
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. I think it's probably beside Lucerne, which is kind of quoted as rowing Wimbledon. I think that Bled is probably second most attractive place that people are talking about, So I would say second or first, it's very amazing because the course is natural. So it's definitely, let's go back to the question, is definitely well known among the rowing community, definitely.
So here's a question from a non-rower. I understand the difference in like routes that you might take if you're running a marathon or something like that. But in principle, rowing is cutting through the surface of the water. Are different rowing venues very different to row? A lake versus a river, Thames or Charles, for example, or lake in Lucerne versus Slovenia? Or is the act of rowing similar? It's just what you see around you?
I mean, Olympic rowing, it's Olympic rowing. Now, doesn't matter where you put the race, uh, all crews have to take the challenge of the venue, which is going to probably change from venue to venue. So Bled, it's slightly different to London, Dorney Lake, or potentially to some other courses. Every course has slightly different specifics. So it could be slightly more side winds or whatever. But the thing is that different between rowing on the river and rowing on the lake, that, if you row on River Thames in London, it's a tide which is going in and out. So these present big difference, and it's probably for people who row on the steady water like lake, probably it's quite challenging thing in the beginning. So it's plus if you row on the sea, it's different specifics as well. But at the end of the day, you sit in the boat, you're trying to push hard as you can, go fast as you can. So you have to adjust accordingly to situation. Is this like if the race is in the port or on the lake or on the river, that's the only thing that you have to think, that it's the race. So that's the only answer actually for professional rower.
So I read that you experimented with different sports because you were such a good athlete in your youth. I'm curious how you ended up falling in love with rowing. I asked because when I was at boarding school, I played squash and I was tall and lanky, and I kept trying to the rowing coach kept trying to recruit me, and I remember thinking to myself, it doesn't look like the rowing team is having that much fun. So I'm wondering, like, what made you fall in love with it, and what is it that someone like me who has never really done it before, other than just to get a very basic feel for it, what are we not seeing that someone who truly loves the sport sees?
I mean, so rowing is sports that we can take as comparison. I would say probably running, cross country skiing, cycling, swimming. Okay. So everything's fairly cyclical. So you move, you train the movement, which potentially looks fairly simple, but when you train for it, it's like rowing race. Uh, it's average, probably it's about 6 minutes, or a little bit less.
Mm-hmm.
And in these 6 minutes, you do about 220 strokes. So in these strokes, they need to be fairly perfect, so because you want to be the fastest crew or single scull or whatever you are. So you definitely have to kind of love to push yourself. Yeah. It's important bit of a rowing sport. It's heavy breathing, high heart rate, and uh, push. So it's like something like running 800. You know,
Mm-hmm. Okay.
so it's not short, it's not sprint, but then you want to go fast out of the blocks, and then you want to continue this speed, and you want to kind of not fall down too much. So not allow yourself to get a breather, but just like push, 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 you know, and accelerate and potentially, make the distance between you and the competition, or hopefully catch the competition. Depends in what kind of position you are in the racing. But I mean, I would say that like, oh, sorry, my phone fall down.
That's okay.
What I would say, what's like every other sport, yeah. Like I used to play volleyball when I was younger, yeah, and it's team sport.
Mm-hmm.
I think that big thing and important thing of sport that we're talking of, whichever it is, it's community. And you go there, you get friends, and that's important bit. And I think the throwing is very, very relaxed environment. People are nice because, you know that you have to work hard. So it's nice support in the community. And I think that's one of the things that it's worth sticking around, especially in Bled, because it's a nice place. You go there, you're in a nice place. Bled is amazing rowing club, and I just loved it. Yeah.
Can you walk me through what a day of training would have been like, from when you wake up until you finish the day? A day of training on Lake Bled.
I mean, if you take, let's say, average summer day, probably you'd wake up, have a breakfast, come to rowing club around 8, half 8 in the morning, do stretching, warm up run, check what's for training, then potentially have short meeting with the coach, go on the water, do these 2 laps of warming up routine and get ready for whatever is the main part of the training. Do another 4 laps. On 4 laps means like 1 lap is 4K, yeah, because it's 2K is the length of the rowing course in Bled.
Mm-hmm.
And then get out, wash your boat, do stretching, cooling down, go for lunch, come home, have a nap, wake up, have something to eat, snack, go back to the training, and repeat. It's pretty much so. Maybe then afternoon training can be slightly longer or slightly shorter, depends on a term of the season, where we are, what do we want to achieve, and then go home, have a dinner, go to bed, and it goes. It's let's say that it's fairly boring. It's like it's like uh, uh, it's like working in the office. Yeah, it's every day you come at 9, you leave at 5. It's pretty much routine thing. So it's like, but of course, training does change from week to week, from day to day, from month to month. So because you're getting ready for, I don't know, this year rowers are going to get ready for Paris Olympics, which everyone knows that this is going to be, I don't know, is it like in August, September? So, this is the top of the season, peak form of the season. You want to do that. And, but to be honest, you're getting ready for Olympic Games for the last 4 years, or maybe for the last 8 years, all your life. As long as you train, compete, it's probably something that you're always getting ready for something big, hopefully. So,
So, when we spectators are watching rowing, whether it's on TV or if we're in the stands at an event at Bled, we're seeing it from quite a far distance, and it's pretty hard for an average spectator to see what one boat is doing better than another. Could you maybe describe what made you and your Olympic gold rowing partner, Istok Chop, so good? You personally and as a team, what set you apart and made you have such wonderful success?
it's hard to say, I would say that you have experience because you're an writer, yeah. So you did write a book, and I don't know. I guess that when you're writing first book, probably it's different experience than when you're writing the second one. And
Sure, of
the
course.
the most amazing thing is to find when you had the flow of doing something fairly, very good. Uh, you want to keep that. And now I think the chemistry, you put two good rowers together. So me and Istok, we had a quality. We are both good single scholars. So we came from the same rowing club, which was definitely beneficial because we have the same coach. So similar rowing technique.
Hmm.
And I think similar engraved knowledge from the person who's teaching you how to do it, how to be persistent and everything. So person of authority, which is your coach. And I think this definitely helped us. So we are as a team, all three of us. So Istok, me and Milos, coach. Yeah. And definitely, I would say it's chemist. Just, sometimes you just get that. And sometimes when you really try, you know, when you try really hard, you can do maybe more bad than good in a way, you know. It's more about just go with the flow, feel it, you know, try to feel it, don't complicate things, because quite often we start overthinking it and we start missing the most important parts, which are usually pretty simple ones. Yeah. You know, it's just like try to feel what you're doing, you know.
Hmm. Can you walk me through the Olympic gold medal race? I'm curious also how much proactive thinking is going on once you start racing, or whether it's just automatic pilot muscle memory.
No, no. You start racing probably, so I would say at least day before, you know,
Okay.
when you finish with your semifinal, yeah, which is, you know, you go to Olympics and then first step is to qualify for Olympics. and then,
Yeah, of
and
course.
then you have like, hits, semifinal and final. And when you're in the final, you know, as soon as you finish with the semifinal, you start thinking about the final. And of course, you're trying to take these free moments not to think about race, but it's kind of always there. Yeah. It's just part of you. You cannot switch it off. And I would say probably day of the final, you wake up, you know, you're like, you go to bed, you want to switch that off. How much you manage to do it depends on the person. But then when you wake up, you know, it starts. I mean, with me, you're nervous. You can feel it in your stomach. Yeah. And it just, you go have a breakfast. These breakfast, you know, you have to eat, but you don't want to eat. uh, then, then you do some warm up session. It could be in the Olympic Village, or potentially you do it around the rowing course, early rowing session to wake up to, you know, just to make nervousness go away, which never happens because you're nervous all the time, but just like to make your body moving. And you're just constantly thinking about what you can do, what you can achieve. If you're aiming for a gold medal, you know that you can get a gold medal and you know that you can lose the gold medal. So it's kind of, you know, I think that my thought process was like acknowledging how much you can achieve and how much you can lose in a way. Yeah. So if you know how much you can lose, you're going to be careful and prepared to answer on the attacks of your competitors. Yeah. And if you know how much you can get, you're going to be prepared to attack, you know, attacking for any cause. So it's like, and this is what happened in Sydney, you know, we had the race record, which we were unbeaten. And that was kind of our, racing plan to go into the final race as well, leading the race, uh, running the race as we wanted. Everyone else was trying to catch us. And, you know, that's that was the whole story. Of course, being aware what's happening around and like, answering on the attacks that they're happening around you, and you know, finish the race in the position that you want to. Yeah. So it's, I think it's pretty amazing feeling when you manage to achieve what you know that you can achieve. You know. So yeah.
The worst question that journalists ask athletes, and the one that everyone always asks, is what did it feel like to win? Do you want to answer that, or do you want to skip that because that's such an annoying question? But journalists always ask it.
No, I mean, I can give you exact answer as I did give it on year 2000 in Sydney. Yeah? I said that it's like being at the amazing concert. Yeah. And I said amazing concert like Rage Against the Machine. Okay.
Nice. I dig
Cause
it.
I was a big fan of Rage Against the Machine. I mean, I still am. And, it was probably they were playing maybe 99 in Ljubljana.
Uh-huh.
And yeah, I think it's kind of, it's a little bit similar, you know, anticipation, your expectations from the concert are very, very high. And sometimes you come and then it's a little bit, you're disappointed with performance, but when it's great, you're ecstatic. You just go with it. And I think it's a little bit similar in the racing. If you manage to win, it's like, it's just like you accomplish something and you're going with it. So it's very organic and, in a way enjoyable. It's like, yeah, very, very fulfilling in a way. Yeah. So it's great.
It sounds great. One of my Slovene writer friends once wrote that Slovenes sometimes have a complicated relationship with other Slovenes who achieve success. Like there's sometimes a little bit of suspicion or jealousy, except with athletes. Slovene athletes who achieve success receive 100% joy and are considered superheroes forever. I'm just curious, is that your experience when you're in Slovenia? Do people recognize you and remember your successes and greet you accordingly?
Uh, I mean, Slovenia is a small country, so, uh, it's definitely country is Slovenia of 2 million people. Recognition is that much bigger. When you go somewhere, it's much easier to recognize someone who did achieve a great result in sports. And doesn't matter which sport it is, people are going to recognize you and people are going to, they're going to be nice to you. And Slovenian people are nice anyway, so it's like, but, I think it's the same dynamics everywhere. Uh, I just think that now, since I live in London, if you take that someone with the same success in London as me, you know, with 9 million people here, you're much less noticeable. Yeah. In Ljubljana in Slovenia with 2
Sure.
million people, it's so much more obvious. So I think it's just different environment, and, it's different culture. So, uh, Slavic people were definitely different than Anglo-Saxon people, So it's like, different emotions, different culture. It's just interesting, when you're hanging around and you see different aspects. And, what I love, it's like bringing English friends to Slovenia. It's like watch their amazement about the area that I'm coming from. It's just like, to be honest, I always took it for granted, Bled and everything. And then you bring friends from a foreigner country and they're like, oh, fuck, man, this is amazing. Yeah. And I'm like, oh, yeah, it kind of helped me to acknowledge that, even that I knew it, but it's just like, as I said, it's there. You see it every day and you're a little bit like, ah, yeah, okay, I know. And then when someone else is telling you, you're like, oh, yeah, 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 yeah. So.
Well, that leads me perfectly into my last question for you. I was going to ask, when you have foreign friends who come to visit and you take them to Bled, what do you like to show them or what do they enjoy most? And linked to that, is there a certain time of year, a certain event that is best for people who are fans of rowing if they'd like to see either a competition or watch practice sessions on the lake?
Slovenia Gorenska. It's amazing. So if you're going to Bled, you're going to check the lake, you're going to check the castle. Of course, you're going to eat good food. So, uh, go to Pokljuka, go to Bohin. So it's like, there's a lot of things to do and to enjoy. What I like to show, we go to the restaurant of Jani Klemenčić, so Špica. Yeah. You have a amazing spot by the lake, and then you walk around the lake, go to the Bled island, tell them the story, go to Titova Villa because it's amazing historic place there. Uh, I mean, it's a lot of things that I could talk about, even towns around Bled, with Radovlica and, so it's just kind of perfect touristic destination. Perfect timing, especially if you're a rowing enthusiast. I would say it's International Rowing Regatta, which is about in June, and, probably when some bigger competitions are happening, like, I don't know, European Championships, World Championships in Bled. So, but the otherwise, I would say probably, I don't know, spring, autumn, summer, yeah, winter, it gives you always different vibe. You go now, it's snow, lake is gonna get frozen. So then in the summer, everything's like, you can jump in the water. So, different time, different experience, which it's so amazing because you have 4 seasons and it just gives you this extra dynamic of the environment, So view from the castle in the winter is going to be different than in the summer. So.
So you should come all seasons, it sounds like.
I think yes, so the big difference is that food is going to be different than in the summer as
That's
well.
true.
Probably you did experience Bled in a different season, so you would probably agree with me that being in Bled in the summer is different than being in winter. And if you're lucky enough, if winter is really wintry and the lake is frozen, you can walk from Bled, from let's say Yanni's restaurant to the island. So you don't need to take Pletna, which is like big touristic boat, and you can just walk to the island and back, which is pretty interesting. Or skate, yeah, ice skate. So yeah,
That sounds great. So did they make you eat a slice of cream cake every day as part of your training?
no. But there are some places, I guess, depends with whom from Bled you would talk. But they would tell you that Blejska Rizina, it's kind of Krenčnica. They would recommend you certain place. So yeah, I mean, I have my own favorite one, but that's it.
We'll keep that a secret then. Luka, thank you so much for spending some time with us, and thank you so much for winning a gold for us.
Oh yeah, of course. I mean, I win it for you and for me as well. So my pleasure.
I asked Luka if Bled cream cake was on the training menu for rowers. Unsurprisingly, it's not, but Luka has a favorite place to eat it when in Bled. He just doesn't want to mention it on the record. So you'll just have to do your own cream cake crawl and taste your way around Bled. Note to self, this would be a good subject for a future episode. I gotta write this down. One of Luka's favorite things to do in Bled is one I've never had the chance to. If a winter is cold enough, the entire lake freezes over. This sounds very cool. I know that's a bad pun, sorry. It's something I would love to do. Bled is the perfect tourist destination in all seasons, he told me. It sure is, and I'm inviting him on my next cream cake crawl. Thanks for joining us for this episode of the Bled Podcast. Is this the most beautiful place on earth? The official podcast of the Bled Tourist Board. In each episode, we explore Bled and its surroundings. You'll find it all here, in this image of paradise.